Hello, folks. My name's Dave Griffin. Thank you for joining us today on the Designated Safeguarding Person training. Our learning outcomes today are going to be covering the general principles of professional practice for social care, going to be outlining your role, that of designated safeguarding person in agencies and organisations. We're going to clarify your duties and your responsibilities in the role of DSP. And we're going to be looking at the types of risks and potential abuses that you and your colleagues may encounter in your role. Going to talk about the relevant legislation that you work under, and we're going to explain the procedure for reporting concerns and what actually happens once you've reported those concerns. Okay, the general principles of professional practice for social care. Sorry, I should just briefly explain my background is social work. I've been a social worker since 1977, and I've worked in the probation service, I've worked in generic social work, I've worked in child protection, I've worked in youth offending teams. I'm retired from local government 10 years ago, and I now work predominantly freelance and I train. Right, now the general principles of professional practice are that the individual's personal outcomes should be known and that they're able to communicate them effectively. The whole ethos of your legislation, the Social Services and Wellbeing Act Wales 2014, said that the needs of the individual are put first so that the adult receives the care and support they need before a problem escalates. Now, this is something I'm going to emphasize time and time and time again over the course of this session. Your role as designated safeguarding person is to be proactive. It is to make sure that when signs and symptoms of a person, an adult at risk, when the signs and symptoms indicate that their life is starting to spiral downhill for whatever reason, or that they are suffering from some form of abuse, then you pick up on it and you alert the authorities. All professionals who come into contact with adults at risk are trained and alert to their needs, including any potential or suspected abuse or risk of abuse or neglect. So it's suspected abuse or even risk of abuse and neglect. So it doesn't actually have to have happened. It's about trying to nip it in the bud. Excuse me. All professionals share appropriate information in a timely way and have direct access to advice to discuss any concerns about an individual. And you, as designated safeguarding persons, are going to be the people that your colleagues come to discuss those concerns. And the other issue raised in that point is about information sharing. When we end up with a tragedy and something has gone badly wrong, when we have the adult practice review, generally what comes out of those things is that lots of agencies had lots of snippets of information about the individual concerned, and had all those snippets of information been put together, then the likelihood of people realizing things were going badly wrong is extremely high. But because we don't put those snippets of information, we don't share information because we're worried about data protection, etc. People operate in silos. When it comes to safeguarding, it overrides data protection, and I'll come on to that in the information sharing section in more detail. All professionals are able to use their expert judgment to put the individual's needs and personal outcomes at the centre of the system so the right solution can be found for them. So it's about the system suiting the individual, not the individual fitting in to the organisation. All professionals work in a multi-agency and cooperative way. This goes back to the point I've just made about information sharing and cooperating. To safeguard and promote an adult's at-risk's well-being and regularly review their progress against the outcomes set out in their care and support plans. Now, the legislation, section 162 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act Wales 2014, places a legal duty upon professionals working with children and or adults at risk to report all safeguarding concerns and all allegations to social services and or the police. This is not an option. So when you have an allegation brought to you, it might well be that the allegation has been made against a colleague or a friend of yours who you would trust with your life. And you think, I'm not going to put them through that. I know that person wouldn't have done this. The allegation is malicious. Well, I'm afraid that is not your choice. If the allegation is malicious, then the person about whom it's been made has the right to defend themselves. So you don't sit on that information. You have a legal duty, and if you fail in that legal duty, the likelihood is, if it comes to light, you will not be a professional working with children or adults at risk for very long. This duty extends to your private life. So as a professional, if you have any friends or relatives or neighbours who also are in professions similar to your own, who cause for concern, this must be reported. And again, failure to do so could potentially result in you no longer being in the profession that you're currently in. Right, the role of the designated safeguarding person. This is a named person within the organisation or agency. So that is you. Your name will be on documents. It may well be in the reception area of the agency in which you work, so that people know who to contact when they have safeguarding concerns. The identified DSP should be available to discuss safeguarding concerns raised by staff, the at-risk adult themselves, or concerned family members or friends should all be able to contact you and raise issues with you. Now I'm going to break all of these down in a few minutes. The DSP should be consulted as to whether a concern should be reported to the local authority. So what will happen is your colleagues, your staff will approach you and say, I'm a bit concerned about Mrs. So-and-so. I'm not sure if this is safeguarding or not, but here's my concern. And the expectation will be you'll be able to give them an answer there and then as to whether or not it's safeguarding. And in some instances you will, because in some instances the scenario brought to you will be crystal clear. In an awful lot of these cases, they will be grey areas and you won't be too sure, but you will know who to ask, and that is social services. It is the responsibility of the DSP to take immediate action to ensure the safety of the individual deemed to be at risk. So if the concern brought to you is that one of the people that you're looking after are caring for has been threatened by a relative who's en route to your premises to carry out that threat, then it is up to you to take immediate action, locking down the building, calling the police, whatever it may be.